I'm an autistic entrepreneur who owns an organization known as Computers for the Autistic Foundation. I'm here today to give you a presentation on how I began my organization, as well as to explain how I live with autism. So, here we go. My journey with autism, there are many things that I have to learn. I've learned differently, just like everybody else in life. And with autism, learning is difficult. I still have problems with my life skills. I still have problems with financial and everything else like that. So, everyday tasks might be a little bit different for me. It might be a little bit different for you. But in life, we all have to come together and be able to conquer our fears and just keep learning little by little. So, I enjoy building computers for children. I am a rail fan, if you know what that is. I also enjoy Thomas the Tank Engine, which a lot of people know because he's been around for so long. In fact, Thomas the Tank Engine was actually one of the only TV characters or children's book characters to actually be related into autistic books, research books. If you read an autistic research book, it will mention Thomas the Tank Engine in some books. So, if you want your child to start out good, either to be young or old or anything else like that, start them off with Thomas. I have, and yeah, so. There are things that, like I said, people with autism have things understanding rights and wrongs, and I have that difficulty too. Like right now, I'm having a hard time keeping focus, and that's a hard thing. But I'm gonna try my best to keep focus. So if I feel like I'm rambling on, let me know. That's how I function. So, one of the other things I like to do, I ride a trike with my business. My business completely runs on a bike. I have ridden all over this state throughout the South Shore area. And as you can see, that's me at Edaville. That's about 45 miles from here, from this location. So, I ride every year on the grand opening from Braintree to Edaville. That is about a 31-mile ride, 3-hour ride on Route 58. And this picture right here was taken last weekend at their Century Awareness Weekend with my crew. I have guys that work for me and stuff, and one of them is autistic too. So, big benefits from working with companies and stuff is that, we have the ability to partner up with companies such as Edaville to be able to do these events. So, and like I said, I enjoy Thomas, and I enjoy trains in general. So, it's a great hobby to get anybody on, and, Edaville is definitely worth the time to go. And here's a fact, if you go to Edaville today, you can actually get in for $27, Massachusetts rate, as well as Rhode Island. So keep that in mind. If you ever go there, you get you save $10. So, and like I said, I've ridden. That is a whole map from Braintree to Carver on a bike. That is not like a Photoshop thing. That was actually, I tracked that on April 8th of this month for their grand opening. I left at 4:30 in the morning. And I got there at 9. First in line. So, I've done over 2,500 miles on a trike within a year. And the funny thing is, I can ride a bike all over the place, but I can't walk very well because I have a disease in my spine. You know, that makes it hard for me to walk. But for the dedication to help children with autism or other disabilities to get a computer to their home, I will ride as far as Carver. So, that takes a lot of dedication and a lot of time and a lot of effort, and it's a lot of money. And to let you all know, I actually spent most of my money, my own money, to run this. I only get $100 to myself each month, and I have to spend it on my trike or on a computer build or anything to keep myself financially up and going so I can service children. It's hard. I do have a financial guy, and we can only spend as much as we can, but in the efforts, it's hard. SSI doesn't have a lot of money. So, trust me, running a company is harder than it looks. So you might be asking, what is my company about and why did I start it? So, actually I started it because I used to try to fix computers for people just to get money and stuff like that, and you know what, it wasn't working out for me. I used to be called the PC Pit Stop. It was a home run operation fixing computers for people at very low prices, which we still fix computers for people at low prices. But I decided, because I have autism, that I would try to start to help others who needed it, because a lot of parents and a lot of kids don't have the accessibility to afford an iPad, which a lot of a lot of children with accessible technology services get iPads. But I wanted to figure out a way to recycle computers at the same time and to be able to keep it eco-friendly. So I decided to form the Computers for the Autistic Foundation. So I work with multiple local shops and people in the community who donate recycled PCs. Those are all the PCs I have in my room right now. That's 39 PCs on a table. Most of them have just been sitting there months by months waiting for parts to get bought. But like I said, unfortunately, finances is hard. But, in the end, a lot of shops do end up donating a lot of working equipment. Right now, we have 8 ThinkPads available for donation that run Chromebook OS, which a lot of you might know what a Chromebook is, but it's running on older hardware. So we've switched from using Windows to that, which is a better, cost-effective thing to be able to outsource so that everything's saved on the cloud. So, like I said, that's a lot of equipment. And I've had more equipment than that. At one time, I had about that much in Dells. If you all remember what a purple Dell was. I had 39, almost 45 of them in my room stacked to the wall at one point. That's a lot of computers. I had about 947 pounds worth of computers in my room at one time. Unfortunately, I couldn't use them. Again, financial. But the good thing is I work with other companies, so they took them off my hands. So, you're probably thinking to yourself, how could you help with my organization? How you can help me is if you know anybody with a computer that's ready to go in the garbage. And here's a fact: a lot of towns charge you money to disposal of computers. Legally, I'm not allowed to take CRTs and printers because they contain toxic chemicals, which you might not even know. But if you have an old laptop, an old desktop, it helps me out all the time. So, you know. We also have a GoFundMe, too. If you know what a GoFundMe is, it's an online fundraiser to help raise money for us to keep operating. You know, it helps out anyway. And even donating an old PC always helps us out too. So, always think of us as a reliable source that benefits both children and also the environment. So, thank you for coming. And I hope that you enjoyed this presentation. And if you have any questions, be sure to ask me.
Chris, are you open to questions?
Yes.
You are. I'm Kevin McCoy. I recognize some people. I ran the program at Situate High School for years, and now I'm working for South Shore Support, building programs for intellectual impairments, and particularly individuals on the autism spectrum. And I asked Chris to come. I did have some prearranged questions for him, and I know you have them on your phone. I have a little piece of scratching. Do you mind? Anybody else can join if you want to ask. Again, I think Chris paints a different face for autism, because if you know anything about autism, there's some commonalities, but it's so broad and differential, and there's some commonalities. But I found Chris to be very articulate. Can I ask you a quick question?
Yes.
What does being autistic mean to you in your daily life? What things are you sort of sensitive to? Some things that you're comfortable with, things you're uncomfortable with? Do you mind me asking you?
No, I don't mind.
Okay.
Like I said in the beginning, there are things with being autistic that are difficult. For me, like I said, I have difficulties with some life skills, which I'm still learning. Basic things, learning how to cook, that kind of stuff. And I do have sensory issues, like with certain fabrics, all that kind of stuff. Like fleece drives me absolutely psychotic.
Sounds, light, noises?
No, I've adapted myself enough to be able to really overcome light and sound and stuff, because I work with computers all day long. So you know, I have to adjust to different types of devices that have bright screens or loudspeakers, low speakers, all that stuff. So you know, I've been able to adapt myself to that kind of thing.
You mentioned the Edaville thing with Thomas, and you mentioned to Gail and I, it was sensory. What were some of the sensory combinations?
Like I said, I just did a weekend with sensory awareness, which what they did was they lowered the volume on their music. They turned off lights on rides, because kids have a sensory issue with lights. They have a narrow gauge railroad there. If a lot of you might remember Edaville. They shortened the blast of the horn. Legally, they have to have a horn. It has to be at least 125 decibels by the National Railroad Association. So even though it's a short line, they have to do it. So, and there were other organizations and stuff out there as well. We were actually the only organization autistic related that participated in this year's sensory weekend, because it was Autism Awareness Month, and a lot of the other organizations decided to do other events, which is completely understandable. So, you know, at least we were out there, and you know, they have a special needs specialist out there who is more than capable of helping any organization or anything in the special need spectrum or advocacy. And that's another problem. I have a speech problem. I have a hard time pronouncing words and stuff. So don't mind me if I try to say a word. I always mess up. So. But if anybody has any other questions, please ask. Yes.
How did you learn to become so high functioning? How did you learn to read, etc.?
I was in special needs my whole life.
In a public school?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I was only taught until like a 4th grade level. And and here's a little bit of a sad thing, I was in programs that physically abuse children.
Ah.
Unfortunately. This was before autism laws were put in place for restraints and stuff. My thing had to be signed off to say my teachers were allowed to restrain me if I was acting up. We were actually locked up in a small room and restrained, unfortunately.
We're not going to name names though, the school systems.
No, you don't want to know.
Okay.
But,
Well, how about after 4th grade?
No. I was taught at a 4th grade level
Right. Oh, okay.
throughout my entire life.
Oh.
Every year, my teachers would teach the same thing. So if you guys have ever known, like, edhelper.com, packets, that's all we used to do was packets. Unfortunately, I wasn't allowed to be in mainstream classes. The only real mainstream classes I was actually allowed in was computer classes. But everything else, social studies, history, everything, I learned the same thing every year. Unfortunately.
How have you supplemented this?
I have supplemented it by teaching myself how to do everything else.
Including reading and history and English and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Yourself? You've taught yourself?
Yeah, I watch a lot of documentaries and stuff like that. I'm actually world cultured. I don't listen to rap. I don't listen to all that garbage. I actually listen to a lot of classical music. I listen to Josh Groban, which, if you know Josh Groban, he was actually in the Polar Express movie. He actually has a new soundtrack with the new Beauty and the Beast movie. And I listen to Andre Bocelli, opera, all that stuff. I don't listen to rap. It's bad for the mind and stuff. So, vice versa.
Do you live by yourself?
I live with my friend and his family. I've lived there, and I do my operations out of my home.
At your home, which is with your family?
Yeah.
I see.
Yes.
As a teacher who's worked with young children on the spectrum for 16 years, many of my students love Thomas. And I'm wondering I always wondered what it was about Thomas or trains that it was so appealing.
The appealment of trains to children with autism coordinates with the movement of wheels, movements of in a circle. It's kind of like an OCD thing. But with Thomas actually teaches kids the fundamentals of friendship, learning how to cope with and approaching a situation. For example, if Thomas struck a shed, he would say, "I did it," and he'd take his responsibility for what he did. And if he's given a task, he does it without being distracted. Or if he gets distracted, he makes it up. So, those are the fundamentals of Thomas. Thomas has been around since 1945. For a fun fact, Ringo Starr was a narrator. Alec Baldwin was a narrator. And George Carlin. And Alec Baldwin was actually in Thomas and the Magic Railroad, if not a lot of people knew that.
Is that a movie?
It was actually the first movie that was made for Thomas and the Magic Railroad. It was Americanized. A lot of Thomas fans don't really approve of the movie, but it was a last transition from Shining Time Station, if anybody remembers Shining Time Station.
I do, yeah.
That was the last thing of Shining Time. That's why they made the movie. It was a goodbye transition between Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends and Shining Time Station. So, you know, that's a controversial thing with that movie. But, you know, Thomas is a big hit with kids. You know, Thomas Land is actually in Massachusetts. The permanent home for Thomas the Tank Engine in the United States is in Carver, Massachusetts.
Mm-hmm.
It is a definitely worth trip. It is a definitely worth payment. Souvenirs are a little much, but for a Thomas fan, it is worth every penny. Anybody else have a question? Yes. Go ahead, buddy.
Well, I have a grandson, 8 years old, who's on the autism spectrum disorder. He's mainstream, does very well in school. I feel at this point in his life, he's starting to feel a little uncomfortable around his peers. Not quite knowing what to say and how to relate. Did you experience that, Chris?
Yes, I did not speak until I was 7 years old, unfortunately. And that's how they diagnosed me with autism, because speech is a big part of it. Having a speech delay is a big part of it. The social awkwardness will probably exceed over time. The best thing you should do with your child, especially at that age, is to be able for him to be around his mates, around his friends and stuff like that, because for a fact, I remember when I was a kid, my friends were all locked up in their houses. It was that bad, because my friends' parents didn't want them to be outside, period. Because they didn't want them to be influenced by the outside world, or to be outside, period. And there's still a lot of kids who I know who were in postgraduate programs that have been like that, which is unfortunate. It's an unfortunate thing, it's sad. Right now I work with a kid who is 22, and he has no health insurance, he has nothing. And right now I'm his ABA guy. And I'm not even an ABA coordinator, and I know what to do. You know, I take all the frustration from his mom. I take the stress from her. I take him out. You know, I'll spend my own money to make sure that he gets a bite to eat. And like I said, the best thing you need to do is to be sure that your child socializes with other kids with the spectrum by going to events, going to places that support autism, that kind of thing. You have to keep that going, because if not, he's going to be, unfortunately, he'll be stuck in the corner. And it's not fair. And like I said, the best thing is to get him out there. And the other thing too is with children with autism, they have bubbles. They have bubbles around them that keep them in their own world. But at some point you have to get them out there. And that's another reason why my organization exists, because we keep the children socially out there with computers. They can talk to their friends, they can talk to their family, and little by little they can step out of that bubble, which they need to get out at some point. When they're old enough, they need to.
Thank you.
Anybody else have a question?
Of course you can.
Good for anybody?
Well,
Take your time, buddy.
When did you start liking Thomas the Tank Engine? Just like the time I started liking Disney.
As soon, probably around 1995. Yeah.
Ever since I was born, I was diagnosed with autism, but my parents always cared about me. They were supporting me and helping me out, even though I have a lot of time to do these things on my own because I'm independent.
That's good.
Also, there comes a point I also watch Disney movies because they help me become a favorite hobby of mine.
Does it help you get more aware? Does it help you get more aware of your surroundings and help you compensate with your life skills?
Yeah.
That's good. And here's the thing, I tell people all the time, Thomas is for everybody. Thomas is not for little kids. Just like Sesame Street. Sesame Street's not for little kids. You know, if you've heard that Sesame Street has a autistic character now,
60 minutes.
you know, be sure to check that out. You know, her name's, I think it's Julia. You know, it's, I didn't watch it, but I shared it. But it's nice to see that companies and TV shows are getting more aware. Does anybody else have a question? Yeah.
I heard that Julia wasn't going to be a principal character in Sesame Street for a few more months. I don't know, is that right? Did you?
I've heard that they're under consideration, so
I wonder why.
process.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, but she has been introduced, hasn't she?
Yes, she has.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, I want to say I think you've done a fantastic job speaking. I'm a mom of a young individual. He's 22 on the autism spectrum. His enthusiasm is movies, Disney movies in particular, and I was just curious if people had computers that we wanted to donate or pass along to you. Do we contact you through?
Yeah, you would contact me through the business cards that were provided. We do have system requirements for computers because older computers that Pentium 4 computers, for example, we're no longer allowed to accept because they're out of date. They're way too out of date for us to even fix. Parts are not available. Stuff like that. It's all on our website. We have everything to talk about on our website if you want to check it out. We have Facebook. Like I said, this will be on Facebook. Hello, Facebook. So, you know, it is all there for you. Everything that you need to know. If you'd like to sign up, how our process works is that you would download our sign-up form, print it out, mail it to us with a copy of either your son's or daughter's IEP, if they have an IEP, or a doctor's diagnosis of their disability, because that is a safeguard for us to make sure, and we also meet the child to make sure that it's the real thing, to get to know them, to be their friend, you know, because that's the point. It's not the point of just giving you a computer, it's also to have a support system. To be like an advocacy for them. If something goes wrong, you know, we're there to step up. If they need a computer for their school, we're there to provide that help. So, you know, be sure to check that out.
Thank you.
Anybody else like to have another question? Anybody?
If we were going to leave, what 3 things should we, what would you want us to know? 3 things to know about autism when we leave here. 3.
Autism is a gift. There is no such definition for the word normal. Because if there was such thing as normal, we would all be the same, and we would all do the same thing at the same time. So normal is just a word. Don't ever think that anybody, us, is normal. And the last thing is to treasure your child, treasure everything that they're going to do for you in the future, even if it's anything they dream. So, thank you. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this presentation, and I hope that after today we can get more awareness and more donations and raise some more money. Thank you very much.